Welcome back to the Cozy Rosie Crochet channel, and if you've ever wondered about how you crochet cables, you know, those gorgeous twisted textures that you see featured on knitted fabrics, you are in the right place. Today I'm going to walk you through some of the basics that you need to know to make crochet cables, including what crochet cables are, stitches that are most commonly used to make them, along with how to read a crochet chart and how to put all those techniques together to create your very own wrapped up in diamonds scarf. Crochet cables are created by using post stitches worked around the stitch in a previous row that create a raised effect on top of the crochet fabric you've created. They're usually worked by crossing over or in front of a previous post stitch, but unlike knitted cables where stitches are removed and then physically twisted, crochet cables rely more on how and where you place the post stitches. I'm going to take you through the most commonly used basic post stitches for our crochet cables. Cable stitches can be made with varying heights of stitch combinations. The most important thing is that the post stitches are roughly double the height of your base stitch. So in the instance here, I have 2 rows of UK double crochets, US singles, and double that height we know is a UK treble, US double. So even though you're using those single crochets or the UK doubles to create your base stitches, and you're using those taller stitches for your posts, you're only going to use those taller stitches for your post stitches. So for instance, I've worked 2 US single crochets, so that's 1 post, 2 posts, and the next thing to do is to work around the post 2 rows below. That's 1 and that's 2. So this is our current stitch. That is 1 post, 1 row below underneath your current stitch to be worked, and that's your next post. Crochet cables with US singles, UK doubles can be a little bit tricky because obviously the spaces around the posts are a little bit tighter. But you simply yarn over the hook as normal, make sure you know exactly where you're inserting your hook, and you're going to insert from the side around your post and come back out the front for a front post double crochet. If you were doing a back post double crochet, you come from around the back of your fabric and back out the fabric of that you're working. Most of my patterns only use front post because it's just so much easier to work, and it just means it's easier to keep tabs on, let's get rid of that tail, easier to keep tabs on the right and wrong side. So you just come from in the front, out the front of your post, and that raises it forward. And the most important thing, I'm going to say this so many times, is to skip the stitch behind the post. So I'll do another one for you here. There's a single US single followed by a post stitch around the next post. And this is a front post double crochet. I would then skip the stitch behind and continue on. You can see the post stitches more clearly, especially where I've done them in 2 colours. And you can see that for each post stitch worked, 1 stitch is skipped behind. Let me show you them in some taller stitches. So in this instance, I have 2 rows of UK trebles, US double crochets. I'm going to work a double crochet into the next. That's the base height of this stitch formation. So for the post stitches, you can do a US double treble or a UK triple treble, or triple treble. Yeah, no, that's right. But actually, I find that it looks better if you do an extended treble in US or an extended double treble in the UK. So you start with your double treble in the UK, treble in the US by yarning over the hook twice. And we're going to work around that next post stitch. I've worked 2 stitches with my chain 3 and my double. So that's 1, 2. This is the post stitch to work around. And I'm going to come from the front, out the front, around that post 2 rows below. So it seems miles away, doesn't it? There's our current row. There's the post stitch 1 row below and the post stitch 2 rows below. And that's the one we come in from the front, out from the front. We bring our loop up. Now I'm just going to extend the stitch by bringing it through that first loop first and then completing my stitch as normal And this heat is making everything sticky. I'm sorry, so it's not very smooth crocheting today. So it's a very tall stitch, but it brings it up to the height of the stitch that we are working without pulling on the crochet fabric or distorting the stitches either. Just like with any other stitch height, you would skip one stitch behind for that post stitch, and then let's put a US double in the stitch next to it, and then I will work another one around that next post. So this post is here, I'm going to work around this next post. So extend it. There we go. And that's your very basic crochet cables. They are just post stitches. I'm going to show you some mini tutorials that are going to show you some different variations of these post stitches so that you can see them leaning in different directions and understand more about crossing left and right. To showcase some of the left leaning and right leaning stitches, the Quilted Cables pattern really does highlight some of those cross stitches that will cross in front and behind. The squares use US single crochet, the same as a UK double, and then they use front post double crochets worked however they're needed to create the stitches. So let me skip across to working that first cable stitch. Oops. And we're going to be working a front post double crochet left cross. So the left cross will indicate that the posts will cross in front of each other, which is the most commonly seen element. So we've worked 5 stitches, so we need to skip 5 posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is in line with where we are. Don't know if I'm close enough for you to see that. So we've done, I'm going to have both here, hang on. So our chain ones, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're currently at this post here, which corresponds with the post 2 rows below, and the left cross is worked over the next 2 posts. So over the next 2 stitches, and therefore the 2 posts underneath. So we're going to come, because it's crossing, we're going to skip one and work around that post 2 rows below with a first front post double crochet, and we're going to cross in front, so we come in front of the fabric to work around that post we skipped. Sorry, it's so warm today, my hands are all sweaty. So that creates the front post, and you see how the last post worked is in front of the fabric. We need to skip 1 post for each of the 2 stitches. And just so you can see the difference between a right cross, I'm going to do that for you now. So it starts the same. We're going to work around the next 2 posts. That's that post there. So we work the first post crossing. So we skip 1 and work around the next post. So for the right cross, we cross behind this post here around that next post. So we yarn over, go behind the post. I kind of fold it out of the way, pick up the post that we want, and work your double crochet as normal. Sorry, the heat is not being my friend today. And it helps highlight the difference of crossing in front and crossing behind. So the front is a left cross, and the post crosses across the front, and then the right cross, you get left with the right leaning post more towards you. As long as you understand that left cross means that it will be crossed in front, and right cross is crossed behind the post you've just worked, you will actually be able to get on okay with these posts. This kind of helps to highlight the left leaning, right leaning element as well. It's as it said, if it's a left leaning, the cable is going to be pointing to the left, and if it's a right leaning, it will be pointing to the right. If you found a cable pattern that you really want to have a go at, but actually there's just a cable chart, don't panic, they're actually a lot more easier to read than you imagine. Crochet charts are generally a visual kind of guide as to what stitches you're going to be using and where you should place them. Typically the right side rows are worked from right to left, and then the left hand rows are worked from left to right. Obviously, if you're left-handed, they can be switched, but most cable patterns are symmetrical, so you can read them in any direction and they'll be fine. As long as you alternate the direction in which you work your rows, your finished image will come out the same. Let's have an up-close look at the Wrapped Up in Diamonds cable chart so that you can see how the stitch pattern is depicted compared to the finished scarf itself. So the Wrapped Up in Diamonds scarf pattern uses a larger stitch, well, to help it grow quicker basically, and then you use a taller stitch alongside that, which in this pattern is an extended treble crochet. That extra extension in the stitch means that you're less likely to get any curling from the tightness of those post stitches. As you can see on the key, you've got 3 special stitches. I've put that in inverted commas in my mind, and that is the front post extended treble crochet, where you do a yarn over and pull through the first loop just to extend the height of the US treble crochet, and that's the same as an extended UK double treble. The other special stitches that are used in this pattern are a V stitch, where, as you can imagine, you get like a V shaped or a diamond, the bottom of a diamond, and then the T stitch, which creates the top of the diamond that is used in these patterns. So the alternating rows to the post stitches rows, there's a lot of rows in this. Okay, the alternating rows in this stitch pattern are going to be US double crochets, and then all of the post stitches are worked with the right side of the crochet fabric facing you. So as you can see on the odd numbered rows, that's where the post stitches are worked. Take it from the very beginning of this chart, you can see for row 1, you are simply working 1 row of US double crochets. Row 2 is also just a row of US double crochets, and the cable pattern begins in row 3. That's because normally cable post stitches are worked 2 rows below your current row. So we're going to skip over the US double crochets worked in row 2 to go round the posts of the double crochet 2 rows below. Being aware of which post to work around is really important, and actually understanding the stitch construction really can help you identify that. Because we are using double crochets or US double crochets in this pattern, the row begins with a turning chain of 3, and that does count as a stitch. So that would count as the first post in that row. We're then working an extended treble crochet around the next 2 post stitches, which are indicated on the chart, and you can see that they are worked around those double crochets 2 rows below. So the first 2 posts of the stitches in row 1 are where we're working the post stitches deemed in row 3. If we continue along row 3, you can see that after we work those post stitches, we're going to be working a normal double crochet into the next stitch. One of the most important things to remember when you're working cables or any post stitch, the stitch where you would normally be working, you actually skip the stitch behind the post. So you'll see the top of the stitch unworked behind your post stitch, and it's really important that you're always skipping as many stitches as the number of posts you've made. So at the beginning of row 3, we've worked our chain of 3 that counts as a double crochet, and then we've worked 2 post stitches, and we skip 1 stitch for each of those posts worked. So behind, you can see that there are 2 stitches that have been skipped. As long as you remember that tip, you're going to know where to work your next stitch. In this instance, we're working a double crochet into the next stitch before moving on to our next cable stitch. The next challenge can be where to work your next post stitch. Now it's asking us to make a extended treble V stitch, which is worked over 3 stitches. So 1, 2 and 3. So it's going to be worked over these stitches, but the chart also shows us how many posts are left unworked in row 1. As you can see on the chart, there are 2 stitches that are not worked around after our last post, and we can count those posts visually on our fabric. So there's our last post. We're not working that one. We're not working this one. We're going to go around that next post. And we're working our extended treble. Now, obviously, the special stitches will determine exactly how you work that stitch, but I can see that we're then going to work a UK treble, US double into the stitch above the post we've just worked. And that means that we've skipped one stitch for this first post. It makes this stitch lean because we've skipped the stitch behind it, but worked into the post in front. We're then going to work another extended treble around this post 2 rows below to complete the V-stitch. So both of those posts are worked around this one here, and just like in the picture, we've skipped those 2 stitches in between. I'm going to continue on to finish this mini swatch so I can show you how it matches the picture on our cable chart. So now row 3 matches completely with what the chart tells us to do by following those stitches. So we have those double crochets in between those extended front post treble crochets to highlight that beautiful cable pattern that is raised up on the front of our fabric. From the back, you can see that for each post stitch we've worked, we've skipped 1 stitch and our stitch count remains the same. So although when at first glance those cable charts can look really quite confusing, when you combine them along with looking at what you're making and with the written pattern itself, they can be a really good guide to helping you understand where those stitches are due to be worked. So don't be alarmed when you first see a crochet cable chart. Rest assured that with a little bit of time and understanding those stitches in the key, they can really help you work out exactly where you're placing your next post stitch, along with helping you count the posts that should be left unworked or how many should be skipped in between. Don't forget to remember that for each post stitch that you work, the stitch behind that post should be skipped so that your stitch count will remain the same unless there are any increases to be worked. I hope that's helped demystify some of the complications around understanding cable charts. Quite a brief introduction to them, but it really does help emphasize the importance of knowing where those posts will be worked and how you can make those crochet cable charts work for you. I've popped a link in the description box and in the top right hand corner so that you can go and have a go at making your very own wrapped up in diamond scarf. And if you really would like to have a bit of a challenge when it comes to those crochet cables, the Cable Comforts Heritage 8 blanket is currently available on pre-sale and will be releasing as a crochet along in September 2025. And there are 8 different crochet cable square patterns releasing right here on this channel for you to have a go at and test your cable skills. The charts themselves will be available as part of the downloadable PDF or in the printed pattern book as well, and those charts really will help understanding those patterns that little bit easier. And that's kind of it. Crochet cables are as complex as you want them to be, and like many different crochet patterns, when you're beginning to learn new techniques like this, it is just taking it a step at a time and making sure you understand the stitches that are going to be used before you tackle a huge project. Let me know in the comments if there is a particular cable stitch that is of interest that you would like to tackle, and I will get a tutorial stitched up for you as soon as possible. And I will see you in the next video.